It was dark, suffocating, inescapable darkness that swallowed everything whole. The cold, damp stone beneath her body felt like it was pressing against her, refusing to let go. She tried to open her eyes, but everything seemed blurry out. A focus. Slowly, her senses began to come back, and the sharp smell of earth and decay hit her nose. It felt as if she had been lying here for hours, or maybe days. She couldn't tell. Her body ached. Every inch of her skin burned, especially around her stomach. The sharp, unfamiliar pain in her chest made it hard to breathe. She instinctively curled her body into a fetal position, hoping to calm the turmoil inside her. Her hands grazed the cold surface beneath her, searching for something to hold on to. To make sense of this strange, foreign place, she opened her eyes again, forcing them to focus. The world around her was blurry at first, but the more she blinked, the clearer it became. She could see wall stone, rough and uneven. There was no light. The only thing that broke the blackness was the soft glow from some distant, hidden source. For a moment, she lay still, just trying to grasp what was happening. She reached up to her forehead, wiping away the sweat that clung to her skin. She tried to sit up, but dizziness overwhelmed her, and her head spun. As she steadied herself, panic began to settle in. Ah! Where was she? How did she get here? Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach, and as she touched the skin there, a sharp, unsettling sensation flooded her mind. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Her stomach was swollen more than it should have been. It wasn't just the result of hunger or sickness. No, this was different. Something inside her was alive. The memories came rushing back. A monstrous figure, large and terrifying, its claws scraping against the stone walls. Her mind shuddered at the recollection of its cold, cruel eyes and its grotesque form. The monster had found her taken. Her dragged her into this underground place. She had struggled, but it was too strong. It's too powerful. Her mind reeled as she remembered its touch, the way it had manipulated her, its monstrous presence over her. She had been left here, in this suffocating darkness, alone. With nothing but her own fear and confusion, the alien girl breathed heavily, her pulse quickening. She tried to focus. She had to think. She couldn't stay here, trapped beneath the earth with no hope of escape. But how? Where was the way out? Was there even one? She shifted, moving carefully to rise to her feet, but the movement triggered a wave of nausea. Her legs wobbled beneath her and she stumbled back to the cold stone. Her hands scraped against the walls, but they gave her no answers, no comfort. It felt like she was trapped in a nightmare with no way to wake up. Her a deep, primal fear. What if she never got out? What if this was where it all ended? Desperation began to claw at her. She couldn't just lie here, waiting for something to happen. She had to get out. She had to survive. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft, distant sound, a crackling noise, faint and far away, but it sent a ripple of hope through her. An SOS. Her mind sparked with the idea. She wasn't alone. Someone might be out there. Someone might be able to hear her. She reached up, trembling, and tried to speak. But her voice was weak, faint, almost as if the darkness itself was swallowing her words. She repeated the action, this time forcing more power into her voice, calling into the void. Help! Help me! The words barely left her lips before they dissolved into the darkness. But she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Her heart beat, pounded in her ears, louder than her own voice. She tried again, the fear that had been creeping in now fully taking over her. She screamed into the abyss. Please, someone help me. I'm trapped. I'm down here, please. Her voice echoed, bouncing off the stone walls, and for a moment, she thought she heard something in return. A faint sound, a static burst. Bad. Like a voice on the edge of reception, too far to understand clearly, but close enough to spark a flicker of hope in her chest. She didn't know who or what might have heard her, but she clung to that thread of possibility. She couldn't give up. Not now. The monster, whatever it was, had done something to her, something unthinkable.
Ow.
But she wasn't going to let it win, not like this. Her heart pounded faster as she tried to steady herself. She knew there was a chance Just a chance that someone might come to her rescue. And with that hope, she refused to let the darkness claim her any longer. With every ounce of strength, she called out again. Her voice, though faint, held a trace of determination. Maybe there was someone out there, someone who could help. Even if there wasn't, she knew she couldn't just lie down and let the darkness take her. She had to survive. The darkness felt like it was closing in again, pressing against her chest, making each breath harder to take. The alien girl had been forced into this nightmare, trapped beneath the earth by something monstrous. The monster's face flashed. In her mind, vivid and grotesque, its eyes gleaming like two pools of molten fire. Its claws had scraped against her skin, marking her as its victim. But the worst part? It had left her here, alone, to rot. She took in a deep breath, trying to steady her shaking hands. The ache in her body was unbearable, but it wasn't just physical pain. Something else weighed heavily on her, a horrible realization that gnawed at her insides. She was pregnant. But it wasn't just any pregnancy. It wasn't a normal child growing inside her. Her hands trembled as they once again found their way to her stomach. She pressed gently, feeling the strange, unnatural swelling beneath her fingertips. The life inside her was a twisted reminder of the creature's presence. A monstrous act that had left its mark in more ways than one. The child. Growing inside her wasn't human. It wasn't even close to anything familiar. Her heart raced, pumping faster with every passing thought. She could feel the weight of what was happening to her, an alien life within her, twisted by the monstrosity of its father. But how could this be? How could she carry something so monstrous inside her? The memory of the creature's touch flooded her mind again. Its long, slimy hands had wrapped around her, dragging her deeper into the caves. She had fought, struggled, but it had been far too strong. Its breath had come in hot, heavy bursts, smelling of decay and rot. And then she remembered. The moment everything changed, it's the feeling of something dark and invasive, pushing inside her, taking root. That was the moment she had been violated, and she had been left to carry the twisted burden. The cave around her felt even colder now, as if the walls themselves rejected her presence. She curled her body in tighter, trembling. Was this to be? Her fate? To be trapped here with nothing but the spawn of a monster inside her? Her mind raced. She needed answers, but there was nothing here, just the oppressive silence and the distant hum of the earth. The darkness was suffocating, but she couldn't stay still any longer. She couldn't just lie here, waiting for the monster to return. She had to fight. She had to find a way out. But how could she escape when she didn't even know where she was? The cave stretched endlessly in every direction, and every movement only seemed to deepen the sense of hopelessness. The walls felt like they were closing in, and the weight of her growing belly seemed to make everything heavier, more suffocating. There had to be a way out. There had to be a chance to survive. Her hand still rested on her stomach, but now it was more protective than fearful. If she was carrying something so monstrous, she couldn't just let it grow in silence. She had to do something. She had to survive, and then it came to her. The faint sound she thought she had imagined the possibility of someone hearing. Her, someone who could help her. A thread of hope in this suffocating abyss. She closed her eyes for a moment, focusing on the memory of the signal. The flicker of sound, the brief spark of recognition in the silence. Someone had heard her. Someone out there had received her cry for help. A small sliver of hope flickered in her heart. Maybe the person who heard her was close. Maybe they were already on their way. The thought gave her strength. She pushed herself to her feet, stumbling but determined. She had no idea who was out there, but she couldn't sit here and wait to die. Not like this. With a deep breath, she shouted into the void once more, her voice raw and filled with desperation. "Help me," she screamed, each word full of urgency. "I'm trapped. I'm pregnant. By a monster. Please help me." Echoes of her voice bounced off the cave walls, but this time, they didn't fade away into the emptiness. Instead, they felt different. She had spoken with everything she had left. Her strength, her will to survive, everything. And for the first time since she had woken up, she felt like maybe, just maybe, someone was listening. Miles away from the suffocating darkness where the alien girl lay, a man sat in front of his computer screen, mindlessly scrolling through the usual daily updates. His life was simple, routine, and predictable, until the signal came. Strange, faint crackle that pierced through the static of his regular work. It wasn't a usual glitch or an anomaly from the nearby satellites. No, this was something different, something urgent. He leaned forward, narrowing his eyes at the flashing coordinates on his screen. The pattern of the signal was off, almost mechanical, but oddly consistent, like a cry for help. He adjusted his headset, trying to hear better. But the only thing he could make out was a series of garbled noises that seemed to form a faint, desperate plea. "Help me, ... The voice was weak, so faint it almost sounded like a dream. But it was there, clear enough to send a chill down his spine. He could feel his pulse quicken as a sense of urgency flooded his thoughts. The signal was coming from a location that shouldn't even be possible, deep underground, miles away from the nearest civilization. It didn't make sense. The man shook his head, wondering if he had finally lost his mind. He had no reason to think it was anything more than a misdirection, a glitch, but some instinct compelled him to investigate. He had no experience in such matters, no training in alien communications or cryptic distress signals. But he had a feeling in his gut that he couldn't ignore. Without thinking, he grabbed his backpack, filled it with essentials tools, a flashlight, a map, and set off. As he began the long trek toward the coordinates, he couldn't shake the thought that this was more than just a coincidence. Someone or something needed help, and he was the one who had heard their call. Hours passed as he trekked through dense forests and rocky landscapes. The terrain grew rougher as he approached the signal's origin. His mind raced with questions. Who was sending this message? How did they get underground? What was waiting for him? He thought about turning back, but the faint voice in his head urged him forward, repeating the words, "I'm trapped. I'm pregnant, ... by a monster, ... Double quotes, each word made his heart beat faster. This wasn't just an alien distress signal. It was a plea for survival. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he reached the mouth of a cavern. The opening was small, barely noticeable, hidden by thick vines and underbrush. His flashlight illuminated the area, revealing the narrowest entrance to the underground labyrinth. He hesitated, glancing at his phone to check the coordinates one last time. This was it. The signal was coming from below. Taking a deep breath, he knelt down, careful to avoid any loose rocks or dangerous edges, and began his descent. The tunnel was tight, cold, and damp. The air smelled of wet stone and ancient earth. Every step he took seemed to echo louder in the emptiness. Making the quiet feel oppressive, he pressed on, his mind filled with uncertainty. What if the signal was just a trap? What if something more sinister was waiting for him below? But he couldn't turn back now. He had come this far, and every step felt like a promise to the unknown voice that had reached out to him. As he moved deeper into the cave, a faint glow appeared in the distance. It was small, but unmistakable. His heart skipped a beat. The light was coming from somewhere deeper in the cave, and his instincts told him it was the right direction. He followed it, each step growing heavier with anticipation. When he finally reached the source of the light, he found her. There, lying on the cold stone floor, was the alien girl. Her skin was pale, her body weak and trembling. But there was something else, something that made her stand out, even in her weakened state. She wasn't human, but her eyes. Her eyes held a depth of pain and fear that he recognized all too well. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, neither of them moved. She was surprised, confused, no doubt wondering if he was real. But then he spoke, his voice shaky, yet filled with determination. "I heard your SOS," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "I'm here to help." Her lips parted slightly, as if to say something, but no words came out. Instead, her body seemed to relax a fraction. She nodded, too weak to speak, but grateful beyond measure. The man could see it now, the alien pregnancy. Strange, unnatural curve of her stomach. His stomach churned as he tried to process everything that had happened. Couldn't even begin to imagine what she had been through. The thought of what had violated her, the creature, the monster that had forced itself upon her, made his blood boil. He knew they didn't have much time. Whatever had happened, here whatever dark force had brought her into this cave wasn't finished yet. And if he wanted to get her out alive, he would need to act fast. But for now, he helped her sit up, offering what little support he could. "We'll get out of here," he whispered. "I promise." With that, they began their journey out of the cave together, unaware of the danger that still lurked just beyond the shadows. The air was thick with tension as the human and the alien girl navigated deeper into the labyrinth of tunnels, step echoing off the walls like a warning. Every corner seemed to offer more shadows, and the further they went, the more oppressive. The darkness became, could feel her eyes on him, though she said little. Her silence was heavy, laden with an unspoken understanding of the peril they were in. The man, still unsure of everything that had brought him here, tried to steady his racing heart. How had this all come to pass? How had he gone from a simple office worker to the rescuer of an alien girl pregnant by a monster, now trekking through underground caves? The entire situation felt like a surreal nightmare, but he couldn't wake up. The girl beside him was real, her presence unmistakable. And whatever had brought her here, whatever twisted force had trapped her, was not finished with them. "I'm sorry," she whispered, breaking the silence for the first time. Her voice was weak, hoarse from calling out for help, but there was an undeniable strength in her tone. "You shouldn't be here. This is no place for a human," he glanced at her, surprised by the words. "I'm not leaving you here," he said firmly, though his own doubt clung to him like a shadow. "We'll find a way out." They didn't know how much time had passed or how far they had traveled, but the further they went, the more it felt like they were walking in circles. The walls of the tunnel were unyielding, the stones slick with moisture. The faint glow from the girl's alien technology was their only source of light, and it flickered as they moved, casting eerie shadows around them. "Why didn't you leave the signal on longer?" he asked, his breath misting in the cool air. "Why hide like this?" Darkened, and for a brief moment she looked away. "I had no choice," she murmured. "The creature. It listens to everything. If I sent the signal too loudly, it would know I'm here. It would have found me already." He didn't need to ask what the creature was. He'd already witnessed the terror in her eyes when she spoke of it. Something in the way she said it, with such certainty and fear, told him everything he needed to know. The monster was no mere beast. It was a force to be reckoned with, relentless and terrifying. Another flicker of light caught his eye as they rounded a bend in the tunnel. He froze, instinctively pulling the girl behind him, pressing her into the shadows. His hand tightened around the flashlight, his senses on high alert. The girl's hand, cold and trembling, grasped his wrist. "It's too close," she whispered. His pulse quickened. The girl was right. The air had changed. The familiar silence now felt like an eerie prelude to something far worse. They were no longer alone. Something was out there, something that had been following them. He looked back at her, and for the first time since they had met, he saw the full depth of her fear. The girl wasn't just trying to escape. She was running from something that was hunting her, something that would stop at nothing to drag her back into the darkness. "Stay close," he murmured, pulling her even closer. He knew they needed to move quickly. The monster wasn't far behind, and if they didn't escape soon, they would never get out alive. They began moving faster, their footsteps now echoing louder in the cavern. The silence was shattered by the distant sound of something shifting, something massive scraping against stone. It's dragging its weight through the earth like it was coming closer with every passing second. The girl looked up at him, her eyes wide with terror. "It's here," she said, her voice trembling. "It knows we're close." The man's heart skipped a beat. The sound was getting louder, closer. They were running out of time. He had no idea what he was up against, but he knew one thing. For sure, they had to outrun whatever was following them, or they'd never make it out of these tunnels alive. With one last glance back, He grabbed the girl's hand, pulling her toward the tunnel's exit. But the closer they got, the darker it became. The light from her alien device flickered once more and then vanished entirely. They were in total darkness, and the monster was right behind them. Then a growled, the kind of deep, guttural noise that seemed to shake the very earth beneath their feet. The ground rumbled, and the walls trembled. They weren't running fast enough. "Move," he shouted, adrenaline surging through his veins. The alien girl stumbled behind him, but he didn't stop. He couldn't stop, in the pitch-black darkness. Every instinct told him that there was no turning back. The monster was here, and it was closing in. The ground trembled beneath their feet, a low, rumbling growl reverberating through the walls of the cave. The noise was deafening, as if the earth itself was groaning under the weight of something far too powerful to be contained. Feel his heart pounding in his chest, a raw primal fear surging through his veins. Every part of him screamed to run, to escape, but there was no more time for running. The monster was upon them. He pulled the alien girl closer, his breath coming. In ragged gasps, her fragile body was shaken, but her eyes were filled with a fierce determination. She wasn't afraid to die, but she was afraid of what the creature would do to her if it caught her. She had already been its victim once. The thought of being dragged back into that hellish underground labyrinth was too much to bear. "We need to fight," she whispered urgently, her voice hoarse from fear but steady. "If it gets us, it won't just kill us. It will drag us back down there, forever." The man's mind raced. He had no idea how to fight something like this, something so ancient and monstrous. But he couldn't let that stop him. He had to protect her. He had promised. And for some reason, some deep, inexplicable pull, he knew that his survival meant nothing without her. "What's your plan?" he asked, his voice trembling with fear but laced with resolve. The alien girl didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped away from him, her eyes scanning the darkness that was slowly closing in around them. The growl of the creature grew louder, more threatening, till it seemed like the very walls were vibrating with the sound of its approach. Then she did something he didn't expect. She reached into a small pouch at her side, pulling out a strange device. It hummed with energy, glowing faintly in the dark. It looked like a weapon, but it was nothing like anything he had ever seen before. Its sleek, metallic surface shimmered with an otherworldly light, as if it held the power of the stars themselves. "It's a weapon," she said, her voice steady now, but there was a quiet sadness in her eyes. "But it can't kill it. Not completely. It can only slow it down, just enough to give us a chance." The man nodded, his pulse racing. He didn't care how it worked as long as it gave them a fighting chance. They didn't have much time. The growl was getting louder. The creature was close, and whatever it was fast. "Give me the weapon," he said, his voice almost pleading. But the girl shook her head. "No, it's too dangerous for you. You don't know how to use it. It's not like a gun." "I don't care," he snapped, stepping forward. "Not doing this alone. We have to fight together." She hesitated, her eyes searching his face, as if weighing his determination. Finally, she relented, handing him the weapon. The metal was cold and smooth in his grip. It hummed in his hands, alive with strange energy, but he had no idea how to wield it. The alien girl didn't have time to explain. The creature was almost upon them. Suddenly, the walls of the cave split with a deafening roar. The sound of heavy claws scraping against stone filled the air, and then through the blackness a pair of glowing red eyes appeared. They burned like fire, cutting through the darkness with terrifying precision. The monster was massive. Its hulking form loomed at the entrance of the tunnel, its body covered in thick, grotesque scales that gleamed in the dim light. Its mouth opened in a sickening hiss, revealing rows of jagged teeth. And then it lunged forward, faster than the man could react. The girl screamed, but the man acted on instinct. He raised the weapon, pointing it at the creature just as it barreled toward them. The air crackled with energy, and for a split second, the world seemed to stop. The weapon fired. A blast of bright, searing light erupted from the device, hitting the creature square in the chest. The monster screeched in pain, Its massive form staggered back as if struck by an unseen force. It roared in fury, its claws slashing at the air, its eyes filled with rage. The girl's weapon had worked, but only temporarily. It had slowed the beast down, but the monster was far from finished. The man and the alien girl didn't hesitate. They ran, sprinting down the dark tunnel with everything they had left. The creature's growls echoed behind them, furious and relentless. But they didn't dare look back. The man's heart pounded in his chest as he urged the girl forward. They had to outrun it. They had to survive. But the tunnel was endless. Every turn seemed to lead to another dead end. The walls closed in around them, and with each step it felt like the world was collapsing. The monster was getting closer. They were running out of time. Suddenly the girl stopped. She turned to face him, her expression hardening. "We can't. Keep running," she said. "We need to face it. If we don't, it will never stop. It will keep hunting us." The man looked at her, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice hoarse. The girl's eyes flashed with determination. "We fight." And for the first time, he understood. This wasn't just about survival. It wasn't just about escaping. It was about taking control. We would fight together or die trying. The air in the cave had changed. It felt heavier now, thick with a sense of impending doom. The ground beneath their feet trembled, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. The monster was close, so close they could almost feel its malevolent presence looming over them. Its growls rumbled in the distance, filling the tunnel with a primal terror that seemed to seep into their bones. They had nowhere left to run. Nowhere but here, in this dark, twisted corner of the world. The man's grip on the alien weapon tightened. The sleek, unfamiliar device hummed faintly in his hands, its power seemingly in sync with his own racing heartbeat. It had given them a brief moment of hope, but now that hope was fading quickly. The creature was far stronger than he had imagined, its rage unrelenting. The weapon had slowed it down, but it had not stopped it. Not nearly enough. The alien girl stood beside him, her body trembling, but her eyes were fierce. She had been through this before, trapped, alone, and hunted by this beast. She had no illusions about the fight ahead. This was not just a battle for survival. This was a battle for her freedom. "We don't have much time," she said, her voice cold but resolute. "It's getting closer, and it won't stop until we're dead." The man's throat tightened. He had never faced anything like this, nothing so monstrous, so relentless. But the girl was right. They couldn't keep running. If they did, they would only prolong the inevitable. The creature would corner them, just like it had done before, and they would be trapped once more. There was only one option left. They had to fight. He looked at her, and for the first time, they shared an unspoken understanding. There was no more time for hesitation, no more time for fear. They were all in now. "We do this together," he said, his voice steady despite the terror gnawing at him. The alien girl nodded, her expression unreadable, but her stance told him everything he needed to know. She was ready. The sound of claws scraping against stone echoed through the tunnel. The creature was almost upon them. The man could see the glow of its eyes now, reflecting off the walls, casting a sickly red light that stained the shadows around them. It was like staring into the very depths of hell. But this time, they were prepared. This time they wouldn't run. The creature stepped into view, its massive form filling the tunnel. It was even more terrifying up close, a hulking beast with dark, slimy skin that rippled with unnatural muscle. Its claws were long and sharp, capable of tearing through stone like paper. The creature's eyes locked onto them, glowing with malevolent hunger. It let out a roar that shook the very foundations of the cave. A deafening, guttural sound that rattled their bones. The man took a step back instinctively, but the alien girl stepped forward, her eyes never leaving the creature. "Now," she said, her voice calm and clear, the fear no longer evident in her words. She pressed a button on her wrist device, and a series of metallic structures began to unfold from her suit. They were weapons more advanced, more lethal than anything the man had ever seen. He didn't hesitate. He knew this was their only chance. The creature lunged with terrifying speed, its claws extended, its mouth open to swallow them whole. The man raised the alien weapon, firing it just as the beast's claws slashed toward him.
Ow.
Hit the creature directly in the chest, the force of it sending the beast sprawling backward. It screeched in pain, a sound splitting the air like a knife, but it wasn't enough to stop it. With a roar, the creature regained its footing and charged again, faster this time. The man barely had time to react. He raised his weapon once more. But the creature was too close. It slashed at him, its claws raking across his chest. The force of the blow sent him flying back, crashing into the cold stone walls. Pain exploded in his side, but he fought through it, rolling to his feet. The alien girl wasn't far behind. She was already in motion, using her alien technology to create a barrier between them and the creature. Energy surged through the air, and the monster recoiled, momentarily stunned by the blast. The man pushed himself to his feet, gritting his teeth against the pain. He knew that they couldn't keep trading blows like this, they needed to end it now. He looked at the alien girl, who was already moving toward the creature again, this time with a new weapon in hand, a long, jagged blade of unknown metal that shimmered in the faint light. She was ready. She knew exactly what to do. "Stay close," she said, her eyes hard with resolve. Together, they approached the beast, who was now snarling, its eyes wild with fury. The man could feel the air crackling with tension as they prepared for the final strike. The creature lunged once again, but this time, the alien girl was faster. She ducked beneath its massive claws, her blade slicing through the air with deadly precision. With one swift, fluid motion, the blade found its mark, cutting deep into the creature's side. It howled in pain, thrashing violently, but the girl held on, driving the blade deeper, her movements like a dancer's, fluid and exact. The monster's roars grew more desperate, strength faltering as it struggled against the girl's unrelenting assault. And then, with one final brutal twist, the alien girl drove the blade into the creature's heart. A crack of energy pulsing through the air as the monster's body went limp. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. The air seemed to still, the oppressive weight of the beast's presence vanishing as it fell to the ground with a sickening thud. The man stood frozen, his heart still pounding in his chest. His body was bruised and battered, but he was alive. They were both alive. Alien girl slowly pulled the blade from the creature's corpse, her face unreadable. She didn't smile, but there was a quiet satisfaction in the way she held herself now. They had done it. They had faced the monster and won. But as the silence stretched out, the man realized something else. This fight was over, but the war was just beginning. The cave was eerily silent now. The only sound, the distant drip of water from the cave's high, jagged ceiling. The monster that had haunted them for what felt like a lifetime now lay motionless at their feet, a grotesque reminder of the horrors they had faced. But as the dust settled, a strange peace filled the air, a peace that both of them knew would not last forever. The battle was won, but the true test had only just begun. The man stood over the creature's fallen body, his breath coming in. Shallow gasps. The pain in his chest from the monster's strike had dulled, but the exhaustion in his limbs was undeniable. Yet, despite the bruises and cuts, he was alive. And in this dark, forsaken place, that was enough. He turned to the alien girl, his eyes meeting hers for the first time since the fight had ended. She was standing still, her figure bathed in the dim glow from her device, her expression unreadable. But there was something in her eyes, a flicker of recognition, something like gratitude, but not quite. "You did it," he said softly. "We did it." Her lips parted, but she didn't speak at first. She was still processing, still absorbing the enormity of what had just happened. Her world had shifted from survival to something else entirely. Now this place, this creature had taken so much from her, but now it was over. The weight that had haunted her since she had woken up in the cave seemed to lift, though her eyes remained hard, focused on the future that awaited her. "We did," she finally said, her voice steady, though there was an underlying weariness to it. "But it's not over yet." The man's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" She stepped forward, her gaze drifting past him to the cave entrance. The monster was only a part of it. I've been hunted before, but I always knew there was something more, a greater force, one that wants to control me. Her words hung heavy in the air, and for the first time, the man felt a shiver of dread crawl down his spine. You're saying there's more out there? More like that thing? I nodded, the weight of her words pressing down on him. Like that thing, but something much, much worse. He didn't ask any more questions. He didn't need to. The tone in her voice made it clear that the true enemy had yet to reveal itself. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about a new war, one that would follow them wherever they went. But even as the fear seeped in, he couldn't help but feel something else's sense of determination. The girl had fought for her life, and so had he. If there was something worse out there, something even more terrifying than the monster they had just defeated, he would face it. Wouldn't leave her alone. Not again. Then we keep fighting, he said, his voice firm. Together. Her eyes softened slightly, the barest hint of a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. It was fleeting, but it was there. Together, she repeated, her tone a quiet promise. The man turned toward the entrance of the cave, the faint light of the outside world now visible through the jagged opening. The journey ahead was uncertain. There was no clear path to safety, no map to guide them. The world outside had changed. It would never be the same again. They could leave the cave now, step into the sunlight, but even that felt like the beginning of something far more dangerous. The monster they had defeated was only one shadow in the vast, dark world beyond. The forces that hunted the alien girl would keep coming, relentless, unyielding. But she wouldn't face it alone, and neither would he. They stepped out of the cave together into the light, though it seemed dimmer than it had before. The man took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the sun on his skin, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he allowed himself a moment of peace. But the horizon stretched ahead of them, wide and uncertain, a new challenge waiting. The alien girl's steps were cautious, but there was resolve in her eyes. She was no longer the frightened soul trapped in a cave hunted by monsters. She had become something more, a warrior, a survivor. And as they walked side by side, the man realized something: he wasn't just helping her survive anymore. Was part of her story now. Whatever was waiting for them, whatever monsters lurked in the shadows, they would face it together. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Their new beginning had just begun. Asked ChatGPT.